Step one of the boxers is to sew the fly. There's two parts to it. The first part is you're going to sew a small portion of the front together. So you've got your two fabrics, good to good. Hopefully they've lined up well because you've done a good job serging. You're going to take a piece of tailoring chalk and 5 centimeters from the edge, you're going to draw a line about 1.5 centimeters from the edge of the fabric and extend it a centimeter past that corner. So it just looks like a little smile. It's about 8 centimeters in total. Then you're going to take that to your machine and sew it. So now we're ready to sew the first part of step one. I did throw a couple of pins in where I had drawn that line just to keep it together, and I threaded the machine. So at this point you'll have wound your own bobbin with the thread you've bought, thread at your machine, and before you turn it on, just check the settings. Make sure A1, your stitch width to 0, stitch length to 2.5. Turn on your machine, line it up, and we're going to start at the top of that line that we drew, foot down, needle down. Sew a few stitches, reverse back a few stitches, and then go forward, trying to sew on that line, all the while keeping it on the 15. You can remove pins just before you get to them. Get to the end and just reverse a few stitches. We reverse so that it doesn't come out and you don't have to hand tie a knot. Pull your threads, cut them short at the fabric but long at the machine. You always want to have the threads at least 10 to 15 centimeters at the machine so it doesn't unthread. And then cut the original threads. Get in the habit of cutting those threads. It can get annoying if you have a lot of them hanging off your fabric. So now you're just going to press flat those stitches that you just sewed. Then you're going to take scissors and you're going to make a little clip right at the corner over to the stitches, but not through them. So through both layers of fabric, do a little clip straight across. And if you were to measure that now, it should measure about 5 centimeters if you didn't serge too much off the front of your fly. So measure it and press it under those 5 centimeters. Or if yours measured less, say yours measured 4, then you press it under 4. But you want it pressed over right where you cut it, even all the way up, and just steam that one side. Then you're going to open up your fabric, and the one that you just pressed is going to stay on the top. The one you didn't press stays on the bottom, and those two edges line up. Then you're going to take pins and stick them right in the middle, about 3 pins going down. And if you're a girl, you probably want a closed fly. So you'll take a piece of tailoring chalk and about 3 to 4 centimeters from the edge, you'll draw a line down, nice and even. Use the seam gauge or a ruler to keep it straight, to spot check it. Draw across, and then you're going to sew all the way up on the fold and across again. So basically you're just going to sew a long rectangle. If you're a guy and you'd like an open fly, you don't have to draw it all the way. You're just going to sew the first 5 centimeters, a small rectangle at the top, and the bottom 5 centimeters, a small rectangle at the bottom, so that the middle part stays open. So bring it to your machine and sew either your open or closed fly. So to sew the second part of the fly, I turn on my machine, I put my fabric underneath where I first started to draw that line, about 3 to 4 centimeters from the edge, the folded edge of the fly. Foot down, needle down. Start to sew, reverse a few stitches, trying to keep it even and flat. Make sure nothing comes up underneath. Make sure you just have these single layers. I'm going to sew down that line. I'm going to demonstrate a closed fly. Now, if I were sewing an open fly, I would have stopped down 5 centimeters and then sewn across. Instead, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the fly, keeping it nice and even, letting the machine do the work of pulling and my hands do the job of guiding. When I get to the bottom, needle in, foot up, pivot. So I'm going to sew across the bottom of the fly. Make sure you put the foot back down. Now, don't break the golden rule. always sew with the foot down. Sew across 3 to 4 centimeters till you get to the other side. Needle in, foot up, pivot. At this point I can take the pins out too if I like. Foot back down, and now I'm sewing up the folded edge of the fly, very close to the edge, taking time to be straight and even. And again, I'm sewing the whole way because I'm doing the closed fly, all the way up to the top, and then needle in, foot up, pivot, foot back down, sew across the top of the fly, and reverse a few stitches. So I've just sewn one long rectangle or 2 small rectangles. Cut your threads, the original threads as well. Get in the habit of cutting those. Put them aside, don't just throw them on the floor. And if you like, you can go and steam that, and that is a closed fly. Step 1 done.